Welcome everyone to another episode of the Frogcast where we have all convos, Kambo convos, where we really kind of touch on everything that's related to Kambo and tangential to it. So today I have a really special guest, Dayan, with me, and Dayan has quite the interesting background. So he was born in 1983 in former Yugoslavia and moved to Austria at the age of 10 due to war, which really shaped his resilience. After completing his education and military service in 2002, he devoted himself to natural medicine, working as an Ayurvedic and medical massage therapist while studying holistic healing and shamanism. A transformative ayahuasca experience in 2008 led him to the Peruvian Amazon, where he spent 2 years learning plant medicine traditions and ceremony work. There, he connected deeply with Kambo and the Matses tribe, which has become central to his global healing practice. Despite facing serious personal challenges, he has continually transformed adversity into growth. And since 2016, he has trained practitioners through Kambo Naturista. And in 2023, he founded the Amazon Soma Healing Center near Iquitos, Peru, where he now lives and works. Now, one of the topics that I would love to discuss with you, Dayan, by the way, welcome. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Something that I think is a very hot topic in the space that needs really balanced and grounded discussion is, ayahuasca and Kambo. These are two powerful Amazonian substances, medicines, rituals that actually often come from different lineages, and yet a lot of people use them, concurrently or tangentially or have relationships with both of them. So you have a unique perspective as someone that has really gone deep with both of these medicines. So I would love to hear insight from you about, what is the relationship that you see between Kambo and ayahuasca?
Okay. So, so thanks for having me, first of all. And then you said they're quite different lineages. So I agree with you when it comes to Peru. And in Peru, we have the Matses tribe, which work with Kambo, and they don't use ayahuasca. While we have a lot of traditions where people work with ayahuasca, but they don't use Kambo. But if you look in Brazil, there the situation is slightly different. There are actually multiple tribes that use both medicines. And there is even a Kashinava legend that says, that explains how the shamans or how they discovered Kambo at all. And it says that the shaman drank ayahuasca. In the division, the spirits told him how to find the frog and how to use it to heal his people. And I also know from my ayahuasca teacher who passed away 2 years ago, at the age of 85, I believe. He shared a story when he was like a young boy. His grandfather used to apply Kambo to him, and he only worked with ayahuasca. So it shows to me that there actually were, even in Peru, other ayahuasqueros, other ayahuasca shamans that were using Kambo. But it seems like that's more like closer to the Brazilian border. It's more like regional than anything else compared to the Shipipos, which live mostly in Pucallpa. They don't use Kambo, and it may be connected, I don't know, with the upper jungle and the lower jungle. I'm not sure exactly what the reason for that is, but definitely it's not as strange that people that were working at ayahuasca also use Kambo. So this said, um, I think there is like a deep connection between those two medicines. If you look at those shamans that work with ayahuasca and use Kambo, they also seem to integrate Kambo just like as another medicine because they have hundreds of plants for different purposes that they use. And also the work with dieta is a very important part of their tradition. And Kambo just seems to be one of many medicines. This is how I understood it.
Oh yeah, that's fascinating that, maybe there are regional differences to kind of how these medicines were combined or interact with similar cultures. Because like you mentioned the Matses, which from my experience, they're very into Kambo, even though they were not, the first tribes to use that medicine, but they're kind of all in, right? And they don't have ayahuasca in their lineage. But then you have these other cultures like the Noki Koi, where Kambo's just another tool, ayahuasca's just another tool, and they really kind of integrate all of the jungle medicines in a very balanced way into their lifestyle and their needs. So that's all very, very interesting. I'm curious, if you have any thoughts on what are the differences between kind of traditional use of Kambo and ayahuasca in conjunction with each other or in relationship with each other versus what we're seeing in modern day. Do you think that there have been any changes, or are a lot of the ceremonies where both are present, do you think they're still being traditionally sort of modeled from?
So yeah, that's a good question, and honestly, I can't really give you like a proper information on that because I hear different things. So I don't know what's really true. If you look into those tribes that work with both medicine, I've heard that they do use them sometimes in combination. Sometimes use kambo prior to the ayahuasca ceremonies to cleanse, and then also sometimes I've heard stories where they would drink ayahuasca and then they hear the frog in the night. Like singing, what we do here too. You just hear a frog like in the night or early in the morning, and they was like, okay, that's a sign, and they go for a frog and have like a kambo session straight after the ayahuasca ceremony, or like still in the night, basically. So I've heard those stories, but I don't know how back in the past that practice goes. Maybe that's just something that has started to happen recently, or maybe that's also something that they have been practicing for generations. What we do know is that it is a traditional practice. They doing like so that the tribes are doing it. We just don't know how back in the past it goes. At least I don't know. Maybe somebody has that information.
Yeah, because traditional is so relative, right? Because like cultures
Yeah,
are always changing over time. So it's like, well, did this start 50 years ago? Did this start
exactly.
1,000 years ago? Because, depending on your definition of tradition, it's all in the past, right? From what I've heard in talking with different indigenous people and really trying to kind of get an understanding of the
Mm-hmm.
timeline of these events, a lot of them have told me that this kind of mixture of these things in close proximity is actually fairly novel, like within the last 30, 40 years. And I know, I think it was the Yawanawa, I believe, or maybe it was the Hunikun. It's hard to remember, but there was this kind of like period that, when the colonial invasion kind of happened where a lot of their culture was kind of lost and discouraged. And then there was a reclamation of that maybe in like the 90s or even 2000s. And that's where they started introducing things like guitars, right? Musical instruments that traditionally they didn't have access to. But now
Mm-hmm.
they're playing their traditional music with these more modern instruments. And so just like an example of like, is that traditional or is that not? Because it is fairly new. So I imagine that some of these methods of, doing the combo before or after ayahuasca might be more recent adaptations, perhaps in response to the interest in like ayahuasca tourism and, foreigners coming and wanting these type of big experiences.
I do. I can fully imagine that that's part of it for sure. Yeah, definitely. But as you said, as we both said, like we don't know. There is no literature on that or any like any information that we can look up. So I do understand there are also differences between the tribes, and one tribe would say, oh, that's not the tradition, and then the other one say, no, we've been doing that, or even individuals between the tribe. Like I have so much experience with him. It says I will talk to one person and he will share certain things, and then I talk to another and they see things completely different. So yeah, we can't tell that for sure, but we know they have been using this both medicine like traditionally. This we can say for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because there's not like, clay tablets or, concrete documentation
Exactly.
by these cultures. It was a lot of word of mouth. And, when that happens, it's like telephone and you get these different versions. And I've similarly had experience where
Mhm.
I can literally ask the same individual year after year the same question, and the answer is almost always different. And I'm like, huh, that's a very fluid reality. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's hard to really know, and I think it's more fun than important to have the right answer, but it's cool to explore like what the possibilities are for
Mhm.
history. Another question I wanted to ask you is, do you have any personal experience using these medicines in tandem, both on yourself and also like with your clients and visitors that come to
Mhm.
your center, and what is your experience like?
So my background is actually working with ayahuasca. So I used to work with ayahuasca and study to work with ayahuasca prior to Kambo. And Kambo, when I first got introduced to Kambo, it just became another medicine for me, and it was like a good way to help people to cleanse prior to the ayahuasca ceremonies. But sometimes I would also offer it after. And I actually experienced myself having Kambo after an ayahuasca ceremony. And I did serve to people as well in the past. It's not something that I do right now, as I don't see the need for it. It is true that very often it is these are those weekend retreats where you just have limited time and you try to get the most out of it, and that like gives you just two options. One is like trying to get as much out as you can, or just like leaving it out because people often don't have as much time. But I guess if you have the time and the possibility, it's surely better to give it some space. But I also see some positive experiences with that. So doing Kambo prior to the ayahuasca ceremony, obviously, in my opinion, it helps you have like a deeper and better ayahuasca experience. I've seen that over and over again. Um, just last week, I had somebody coming here for an ayahuasca ceremony. We did Kambo day before. She had a really good, deep, like calm ayahuasca ceremony because it really helps you cleanse. And that's also not something weird because like doing different purgatives, so cleansing, taking plants, purgative plants prior to ayahuasca, it's like a common practice here in the jungle. That's like very, very often done. So yeah, I can understand why Kambo would be a good tool for that. Now, taking Kambo after the ayahuasca ceremony, yeah, I understand the concerns, but at the same time, if like if you don't ignore many of the things which you can go into detail what those things are, it can actually be done safely and it can be beneficial. The benefits you can get from it is especially if you have like an ayahuasca ceremony where you may not get everything out for whatever reason. It can happen just like with Kambo. I don't. I remember we talked once about your ayahuasca experience, but I can't recall it exactly how many times you drank or what it was. But maybe you kind of know that when you drink ayahuasca, like every ayahuasca ceremony can be different. It's not like there is like a standard experience that everybody gonna get. So sometimes you may not get everything out, and you feel like there is still something to come out. And I have experienced that on myself, and I have seen people that where this helped, and they had like the combo session, and it helped them get that out. Also, I had like different clients which didn't sit with me for their first combo session, but they were with Yavanavas, for example. They do that actually a lot. They would serve ayahuasca, and then the next day or the next morning they would serve Kambo. And people coming to me to have their second Kambo session after that, and they said that was a really good experience. Actually, I know a couple of cases where it was life changing or profound, and that was their first introduction into Kambo, and it was actually a positive experience.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard some mixed reviews about, especially doing the combo immediately after a night of ayahuasca. I'm definitely more familiar with doing combo before. I've experienced
Mhm.
that. I've served other people. And I can say that there's definitely like an enhancement in the psychoactive effects of any psychedelic, if you do combo like the day before, which I think can, bring more kind of clarity and ease into any sort of psychedelic experience following Kambo. But yeah, when I've talked to people about, doing Kambo immediately after ayahuasca, sometimes they'll sort of state that they felt that the Kambo really kind of terminated the afterglow of the ayahuasca because Kambo rips you into your body. Um, and so it can kind of ground you in a way that may be disruptive for some people, in their, unfurling of their ayahuasca cloud space. The biggest concern that I have, and I've kind of heard a number of cases over the years that, get whispered in my ear. They're not necessarily published or, out in the open,
Mhm.
but where people are having hyponatremia and electrolyte disturbances, which makes sense. There are these like low salt or no salt dietas that are common for people to follow, based on the tradition of preparing for ayahuasca,
Mhm.
which does not really work so well with combo or is even
Mhm.
necessary for combo.
Mhm.
And, people are purging all night. They're having massive amounts of neurological activity and
Mhm.
neurotransmitters going on, which is going to shift around different electrolytes like sodium and potassium.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, you are purging, so you're depleting yourself of different like salts and electrolytes. Then you take the combo, you're advised to drink maybe an obscene and unsafe amount of water, because I know this is
Mhm.
also common where people are like, yeah, just drink 3, 4 liters of water because they don't have training around the risks of
Mhm.
hyponatremia.
Mhm.
And so you combine, the kind of innate potential abilities for ayahuasca and Kambo to already disrupt electrolyte levels because we have some physiological evidence of
Mhm.
that, combined with the no salt diet, combined with purging and or staying up all night, and large quantities of water. It's like a recipe for high risk situations to manifest. And I just know of so many cases where, people either died or had to be hospitalized when they did the ayahuasca and then the Kambo after or
Mhm.
in between. I
Mhm.
haven't seen that manifest really so much when people are doing Kambo before. So
Mhm.
for me, there is a kind of a preference of doing it before because I believe that that might be safer for people.
Mhm.
But I'm curious if you've ever encountered anything like that or have any opinions on that or how you mitigate those risks if you do feel that, serving camo
Mhm.
after ayahuasca is indicated.
Yes. No, th those are all legit concerns, and they're factually correct. I agree with you on all the points. At the same time, I also like to break it down and to understand each one individually. And so when it comes to salt, so I know from different traditional practices, just for example, the Matses, that they didn't have salt in their diet till the 70s. They only got introduced to salt once they were contacted. So, and we know, or they shared at least the stories with me that they have been using Kambo prior to that, and even doing like type of dietas. And I would also love to explain a little bit what the dietas is in a moment, but basically they were, like, you're kind of like isolated, and you're not eating any salt, any sugar, any fats, and they would apply Kambo to themselves twice a day for a week maybe. And during that time, they would just prepare their arrows and prepare for hunting. Because for Matses, we have to understand their practice, their Kambo practice is all related to becoming a better hunter and being a better hunter. Healing is kind of secondary. At least this is my experience talking to them. And so obviously their dietas are focused on becoming better hunters, where the traditional dietas in a shamanic context is more related to try to help you to become a shaman, actually. So that's kind of slightly different, but it's the same. So they didn't have salt in their diet and were using Kambo. So it doesn't seem to me that that's kind of an issue, because they never had any problems with that. Now, we also know that many of the Matsés people were doing dry Kambo or drinking a small amount of water. Actually, not even water. They drink masato. Some people call it cassava, which again, it's similar to water. There's no salt in it. There's such a little amount of sodium in it that it's really not relevant. Potassium maybe a little bit more, but again, it's not the sodium. And I know it also from my personal practice because dietas is a big part of what I do. And I have served, or I have at least witnessed or guided people through dietas, and I have witnessed probably over 1,000 combo sessions where people were on low or no salt at all for a week, like so low sodium diets, and it was never ever like a problem. So that's why I understand the concerns and why it could be and how hyponatremia works and why that could be a potential risk, but it doesn't really seem that that's an issue. At least I haven't seen it so far. I haven't read about any case or haven't heard anything related specifically to the salt. um, Again, now when it comes to ayahuasca, some people do recommend a diet where to abstain from salt prior to the ayahuasca ceremony, but it is also important to note that's not necessary. Traditionally here, people don't do that. So when we do ayahuasca ceremonies here, we have salt the same day when we drink ayahuasca. So that's not an issue. Again, then also the other possibilities, if somebody feels depleted in electrolytes or sodium, there is always the possibility to have some in the morning. So that's related to the salt. Now, being exhausted from an ayahuasca ceremony, just like mentally and being overwhelmed, it can happen. So in those cases, I would definitely not recommend anybody to have kambo the next morning. And this is not just like with ayahuasca. Also, like if you just can't sleep, like and have nightmares all night long and wake up and feel unwell, don't do kambo. They're just like simple as that. Um, Now, when you purge all night long and are exhausted, like physically because of that, again, don't do kambo. And this is not something specific to ayahuasca. This is just like in general. Also, like if you have like a food poisoning, you purge all night long, you're completely exhausted. Maybe not the best to do straight away kambo. Like recover a little bit before you're doing it. And so, lastly, what you mentioned is the drinking water and drinking too much water. And that seems to be a real issue. I looked into all the hyponatremia cases that are publicly available and related to Kambo and Kambo deaths specifically. And I believe there are 8 or 9 Kambo related deaths because of hyponatremia. 2 of them happened after an ayahuasca ceremony, the other one were on their own. And in all of those cases, you see that people have drank over 3 liters, usually between 3 and 6 liters of water, which is
Wow.
a crazy amount of water to drink. It's like dangerous to drink that without any medicine because we can just filter like about
Mhm.
a liter per an hour. So if you don't purge that water straight away, it needs to go somewhere. And then obviously the risk for hyponatremia is bigger. Sure, like now the sodium level are also low and all these other things that you mentioned, yeah, probably the risk is bigger, but it's not specifically doing kambo after ayahuasca. It's more those other things that like can contribute to it.
Wow, you touched on so many different things, so I'm trying to decide which one I want to address.
Hmm.
Thank you for all that. So one thing that was really interesting that you brought up is the kind of modern ayahuasca preparation diet. Because I always wondered about this because I was like, they didn't always have access to sugar, salt, oil, spicy food, right? Like they just
Hmm.
ate monkey meat and platanos, you know?
Hmm.
So I did have questions of like, well, when did that dieta ideology develop? Because it must have been after contact, right? So that also again highlights that some of these sort of traditions may not have always been traditional, right? They might be more novel in the grand scheme of the timeline. You also mentioned sort of the purpose of, shamanism versus hunting, which I want to dive more into in a minute. But I also wanted to ask, um, do you find or believe that there might be biological differences between like the constitution of an Amazonian person versus maybe like a Western person? Because sometimes I wonder if, things that work in the Amazon for a long time, they might not be totally translatable to the sort of fragile biomes of people in the West. Have you found that to be true or have any opinions on that?
Opinions. I mean, I haven't done any studies to be sure about it, but like I do have opinions. I do believe that there may be some differences. I actually do believe that there are even many differences between just the people that live in the West, because like traditionally people had like a very similar lifestyle, diet, and so on, where in the West you have two people from the West. We just, like say people from the West, but they may have like a completely different lifestyle and diet, and the health condition specifically. I think if the kidneys doesn't work properly, there's a higher risk of all those things that we mentioned earlier, and so on. So yeah, there may be some differences. I just know like doing the traditional dietas, which involves like not eating any salt for a long time, which I have done myself for like a long time. I had like many months where I was not eating any salt, and I can't say that it affected me negatively in any way. So I can just talk from my personal experience and from those people that I know that came here with that clear desire to learn and become shamans or to work with ayahuasca and have done those traditional dietas. But I do think that some people in the West may not handle that very well, for sure, for different reasons. Maybe just psychological, just like related to their personal beliefs and the mental state. But it may also be physiologically because they may have, like certain health conditions or something that even they don't know about.
Yeah, that's what I've found to be true. Like, just especially as an American, right? There's like so
Hmm.
much unhealthy populations in America, and I just think about like even just like the amount of antibiotics that someone may have been treated with versus an Amazonian person is inherently going to change their microbiome and their gut barrier integrity and things like that, and that can affect things like nutrient uptake, aka electrolyte uptake, right? Sodium uptake. So if you have these people that are already existing in a deficient state because their physiology is sick, basically. And then you put them in a circumstance that a healthy person, would be able to be resilient in. I I wonder if, they're going to be more fragile. At least that's what I've seen just in working with a lot of people with chronic health issues. And I think sometimes we have to adapt things and remember that they're not Amazonian men that are climbing trees and, drinking river water and stuff like that. I want to ask you as well about, you know, what the role of shamanism or even shamanic perspective is in how you practice Kambo. Because I've mostly worked with matses, which, as you stated, are very utilitarian about how they use Kambo typically, and it's very much for hunting magic, right? There's a purpose. And then, yeah, if you're feeling off or lazy or sick or something, then they'll use it. But then there seem to be other tribes like in Brazil that might have a little bit more spirituality in how they relate to Kambo. So yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are and just what your personal practices bridging spirituality with the practice of Kambo.
Hmm. Yeah, just as you said, like Matses is slightly different, and just correct what you said. Like this is also my experience working with the Matses. I just recently had like a conversation with some Matses people, and they shared that they learned from the Marubo tribe, which were like big kind of shamans, brujos as they call them, like also like doing maybe not only like, because when we say shamans, it could mean different things. Most people, at least in the West, I think. Relate to something positive, or relate that word to something positive, but here could mean both things, like they may also just like use the spirituality to do some negative stuff with that too. And so Marubo apparently were very powerful shamans back in the days, and the Matses actually learned from them to work with Kambo. I have heard also different stories where they said, like they didn't learn from any other tribe and so on. So I don't know what exactly is true, but if that's true, that means yeah, there were other tribes that were in Kambo in a more spiritual way. But I don't think specifically Kambo, because in my experience, Kambo is not really psychoactive. Even though I had a few sessions where I would feel kind of like a frog spirit energy talking to me or giving me instruction, but it is nothing compared to ayahuasca, like where this is kind of what for most people gonna happen. And so I don't think, or I don't like, I haven't heard people use Kambo like kind of in that same way. Like people don't use Kambo to ask the spirits what to do, while you drink ayahuasca to have a clear vision when you don't know to find something. It's like a very typical story here in the Amazon. Like when somebody comes to an ayahuasquero, to a shaman, and has like a certain health condition, the shaman who done dietas with specific trees that teach them about the forest. So when they drink ayahuasca, they connect with the spirit of that tree, and that tree gives them instruction where to find a specific medicine for that person. Sometimes they even don't know about that plant. It's not like they studied all the plants. They have like a vision. This is how the plant looks, and you're gonna find it at this place. So ayahuasca does that. So working with ayahuasca, you do that. But with Kambo, I haven't heard or like any stories like similar to that. So it's yeah. So I think I always say Kambo for me, it's like mostly a physical experience and slightly kind of spiritual, like maybe 10%, and ayahuasca is the other way around.
Hmm.
So this is how I see it.
Interesting. Um, do you have you witnessed or do you incorporate any like ritualistic elements to how you use combo, or do you feel like sticking with the tradition is best?
I do actually. I do. So I learned from the Matses, obviously, from Pepe back in 2011. And it was a very simple approach, even to this day. If you want to learn from a Matses person, there's like, yeah, that's the stick. You spit on it, you scrape off the medicine, you burn with the tamshi, and you apply it on it. Look for a spot, and that's it. That's the way of working with Kambo. There was nothing spiritual about it, or nothing deeper that he could tell me. And even to this day, I haven't seen any Matses people doing it differently. Uh, so when I kind of came back from the community, from the Natchez community, I started exploring and working with Kambo. And so as I said, I have a background working with ayahuasca, and specifically the dietas, which is the traditional way of connecting with the spirit. Some shamans, or actually all the shamans I talked to in the Amazon about working with ayahuasca, they say the dietas, doing plant dietas, it's actually more important than just drinking ayahuasca. So they give it even a higher um, importance. And so my teacher, she taught me how to do dietas on my own. And so this is something that I used to practice even before I tried Kambo. So when I came back and started exploring with Kambo, I just felt there must be more to it. And so I did my dieta with it, which is also done in some tribes in Brazil. It's actually not like a purely made up practice. It has like a tradition. So I try to connect with the spirit of Kambo through dietas. And so this is how I tried to feel the medicine. And as well, when drinking ayahuasca, you can kind of connect with the spirit of any medicine, including Kambo. And so that was kind of my approach. And I added like elements to it, like the singing, and been holding a space, which is more done in ayahuasca ceremonies, like they call it Icaros, like the songs. That's an invocation song to the spirit. So I do give those elements to my work. I do integrate those elements, even though they're not traditionally, specifically not with the Matses. And I haven't seen that it's doing any harm. So in best case, it does something good. So it's worth doing it, I guess.
Yeah, it's like you are taking like a concept of how they relate their spirituality like with the land, and then Kambo can fit into that just like all these other plants can, which really is kind of like more of like a worldview that they embody, and then Kambo is just one of many spirits in the jungle that fit into that program. That makes a lot of sense. I am curious, because I think, you and I may have had similar experiences where the actual indigenous method of applying Kambo is pretty non-technical. And there isn't this traditional aspect of ritualization. And in the West, in globalization of Kambo practice, we're seeing a lot of neo-spiritual adaptation,
Hmm.
um, which, it seems to provide actually a lot of benefit for people. And perhaps it's because these more westernized cultures have lost some sort of spiritual connection with the world and with themselves. And so they're looking for it in these other types of, foreign medicines or whatnot. But I do find that there is a lot of value to that. And so I'm curious if how you feel about like this adaptation of ritualization of Kambo, where there is a lot more focus on personal healing and like the self than just the utilitarian effects of becoming a better hunter.
Yes. Um, yeah. So I think we have to distinct between two things here. It's not just like about people in the West kind of adding that shamanic element to it, as like compared to the Matsés, which don't have that at all. It is more who is doing that, because like I see I would say like an issue with that. I think the medicine community, it's its own worst enemy, and and specifically people that are doing that but don't have a solid practice in that work are doing the most harm. um, I think like most occupations, especially health related, are regulated. Like I can just put like a white coat and call myself like a doctor. It's like it's not how it works. You can, but like they're gonna get you and you're in trouble. But you can put like just like a couple of feathers, take your maraca, the shaker, and blow mapacho, and yeah, it just looks the same as the guy in the Amazon. What and so people think that this is how it is, and that's, I believe, it the most important, that people that haven't been really working with traditionally with ayahuasca or the shamanism, Amazonian shamanism specifically, are aware that not everybody who came once to the Amazon, drank 5 times ayahuasca, and came back home and has all those uh, uh, tools, that he's automatically a shaman. It's not like that. Just because somebody looks like a shaman, it's not like they are. And so we see people doing that in Kambo as well. And then it seems like, oh, this person is more shaman than others. But the truth is, those people don't know what they're doing. And this does actually a lot of harm to the medicine community, to the Kambo community, and to as well ayahuasca. And so, um, yeah, I guess the most important is that we separate who are those people. But I think that we can add those spiritual elements to it, and it can benefit if it's done correctly. At least this is my experience. But I also know that it is not fully necessary. Like you can just take Kambo, you don't need a ceremony, you just apply it, just using it like practically, just as the Matses do, and it's still gonna work. Just what is the intention behind it? That's maybe the bigger question. And we know if the intention is stronger, if those elements is like, if we connect it, if we really believe in that what we do, then it may give like bigger benefits. This is also my experience.
Yeah, I think you brought up another really great point, which is that intentionality is not necessarily the same as opening shamanic realms, right? One is kind of like consciousness. I mean, they're all consciousness medicine, right? If everything is consciousness, but one is kind of more specific to the individual's consciousness and what some people call the placebo effect. I kind of hate that term.
Hmm.
But yet you can really bring that into a ceremony and have it be powerful and have it catalyze personal benefit from the experience. But then talking about something else when you are acting as a spiritual mediator and opening up realms and inviting energies and beings into a space that you may not be equipped to actually manage because you don't have the skills or the training or the experience. So I find it really interesting, like the distinguishment between those two things, because I've found from my practice that, yeah, really kind of psychologically curating a container through elements of ritual and intentionality, I think is really, really powerful for people. But yeah, it is kind of different than really diving into like the full energetics of these different dimensional realms, where there's stuff in there that can be chaotic or hurt you or that we just don't understand. Do you see any like differentiation between those, or do you see those as kind of, blended together or the same?
So I'm just gonna share what I have learned, like working like with shamanic practices, Amazonian shamanic practices from my teachers. And so basically how they see the cosmology in the shamanic cosmology in the Amazon, at least how I was taught, is kind of every plant, every being, every animal has its spirit, like an individual spirit. But there's like what they call the la madre spiritu, like the mother spirit, or like the mothership, like kind of this like a archetype of like spirit of that being. And we can connect with that and communicate or ask things. But it's not just like, oh, I just connect and ask that. It's like you need to give something. So in the Amazon, it's like not just in Amazon, I guess, like in all traditional spiritual practice, always this exchange of giving and taking. It's not just like taking. And so the giving here is done through dietas. So you do the dieta, that's your sacrifice. Like you sacrifice yourself, your pleasures, your comfort, and all those things in order to be able to connect with that spirit later on. And so I believe that this is how it is. And they say like you can lie to yourself, you can lie to others, but you can't lie to the spirits because they see that there's the visible world and the invisible world. And so they see you all the time, even if you don't see them. And so people that pretend to be something that are not, it's just like a question of time where it backfires. This is at least how I was told. So I don't know how, like that's true or not, but this is how I understand it.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm curious, you know, as Kambo has clearly left the jungle and is inhabiting all different parts of the world, and there's different communities that are using it, and they're applying their own sort of methods and flavors of it. What do you think is crucially important for um, maintaining respect and connection to the origins of Kambo as it spreads and gains in popularity and becomes more visible in the global eye?
I mean, respect is should be like a common sense for other people, other beings, for everybody. That's kind of like what I think. And when it comes to Kambo, it should not be different. We should definitely respect because we would not know about it if there were not people that were practicing it, that were keeping that knowledge. Because we know that there were other tribes using it too. At least I have heard about like stories, the tradition, and there were more tribes using it, but like just the knowledge disappeared. And I do believe Limatzes would have probably lost their work with Kambo too if there were not people coming from outside and like wanting to explore it. So we should respect those people. We should always give respect to those people, and we should always give respect to the frog and to the medicine. And like it should not just be used as another remedy, as like a pill you buy in a pharmacy. It's like, oh yeah, whatever, just take it and they're gonna help me, and I don't care. there should always be respect, and we should always try to see what we can do to give also something back.
Yeah, I think, you talking about the sacrifice of a dieta
Hmm.
is important for making sure that you're really kind of earning the connection and the relationship. I see so many people who want the fast, quick, easy, cheap route. They're in a rush to step into these roles as providers or whatever, and often they're not qualified, they're not cultivated, they're not ready to be a leader in their communities in that way. So I think it's really, there's wisdom in the idea that, like, yeah, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Like, you have to give something up to gain something from these spirits, from these medicines. Um, and there was something else I was going to say, but I'm kind of blanking. Um, oh yeah, reciprocity. I think that's another like really hot topic, and one that I think should be foundational to the growth of any earth medicine, any indigenously developed medicine, where we can't forget the people that pioneered this earth technology, like they had to do some weird stuff to figure out what works and what didn't. And I've definitely heard stories of the Matses trying other frogs out and having people die because of it. And that sacrifice needs to be honored too. And there's no reason why people should be making a full career and living out of working with a medicine, elsewhere, while there's people in the Amazon trying to get enough food who can't afford shoes or, want to have electricity or whatever it may be. So, um, what do you think is the best way that people can practice or get involved in reciprocity as a concept and practice?
Hmm. Yeah, it's so I don't know if there are any organizations where, like that at least that I know that maybe are involved in helping people, the Matses. But yeah, like who are you talking about? Practitioners or people just in the West that are using Kambo or like
I think just in general, and if you had any ideas of like what does that even look like at the fundamental level, maybe you don't know of an organization yet, but just like bringing supplies or paying fair price for ethically traded Kambo supplies and things like that.
so yeah, I have a mixed view on that, and so for
Mm.
me, definitely we should help always. Like there's no, but like as somebody who's been living here for a long time and has worked with Matses, we have to understand people are people, regardless if they're coming from a tribe, regardless if like they're natives or not. There are differences between people. We can just like, oh, those are the natives, they're like that. I believe that's very wrong way of looking at any group of people. So there are different individuals that have different personalities, and so I have seen a lot also negative, a negative side to that, where people are being, like lying or abuse, like basically stealing or just trying to benefit themselves instead of the community or doing good for the community, and that's a reality too. At the same time, as you said, there are people, they don't have shoes, they don't have, like living really in poverty, and we should find a way to help them. So obviously paying a fair price for the combo sticks should be something very important, and I've been trying my best to do that. But I do see the necessity where people like even to the people that I used to work with, I would pay a fair price, and then maybe somebody else would come to them and say, "Look, I don't want to pay that, but I want to buy a high quantity," and they just like, mean better any money than no money, and so they put their principles away, and then the other people that have paid more, they feel like, "But why do I'm paying more and this person paying less?" And then like you have so many people that are offering and pushing the prices down that they can compete, and it's like a cycle that's it's a tricky one. it's a tricky one. At the same time, we see because of that they are harming the frogs a lot, unnecessary harming. And so I think the best is to find a way where people are doing good work, treating the frogs well, are honest, and yeah, just giving them as enough, like more than whatever it's the standard right now. And so they're motivated to keep doing the good work instead of just like do as much as you can, regardless how the frogs are treated. And surely, like if you go to the United States community, which I think you've done many times, you bring always some gifts, you bring something for the kids, and yeah, it definitely helps. But what would probably most help is like for them having a good education, and being able to manage them themselves like independently. That probably would the best thing. And I hope, because I see some young RMTs having better education, and hopefully they're gonna be able to do that. It's just like very important to stay pure and humble, which is probably difficult for any person when it comes, like with every power you get, it's slightly difficult to do that. So yeah, this is how I see it more or less. But yeah, we should always try our best to help instead of just like taking, because I have seen many people from the West coming here and they just like, oh, I just gonna buy a lot, just seeing it as a business and just paying as little as possible, pushing the price down, and then different Matisse people, it's like, yeah, better I sell something than nothing. Otherwise they're gonna go to another person and they're gonna sell it. But then like a short time later they don't have money, and it's like, hey, can you borrow me, can you lend some money? And
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up. And it's one of the reasons I love having discussions with you because you have a great way of really presenting the nuances and complexities of complicated things. And yeah, I mean, I've had this experience very much so where you bring supplies, you bring resources, and you still feel exploited. And it's this very delicate balance of like, well, how do I like support this population without being taken advantage of and without enabling them to, kind of just become accustomed to receiving, receiving, receiving. It has to be balanced, right? Reciprocity means that it works for both ways. And that can be really tricky because anytime you have people that are in poverty, that are desperate, it is human nature. Like humans are designed and wired to always want more than what they have. Even if you're a millionaire, that's why we have billionaires, you know? And so I've seen communities change over the years where you bring them clothes, you bring them water filtration systems, you bring them solar panels, whatever, and their communities just start becoming more and more and more modernized. Like now there's toilets, now there's showers, now there's beds, now there's Starlink, and it's an interesting phenomena to witness, and also like a philosophical question to ponder of like, well, what is my right as someone who's, sponsoring or donating or being charitable to sort of direct how funds are allocated? And the truth is it's not my right. Like
mm,
when you give to these people, you have to understand that you don't really get much say in what they spend it on. Like they're people and they have the right to choose. And you can make decisions on how much you give and how you give in order to, hopefully allocate things in a way that you see fit if you so wish to. But it's tricky, right? And yeah, I think it's like the, give a man a fish versus teach a man a fish thing, where the
mhm,
best way that you can empower people is by helping them be more self-sufficient, helping them manage their finances, helping them be exposed to ideologies and perspectives that help them understand like the long-term benefits of managing their finances responsibly. Because yeah, they once you give them money, they just kind of blow their load and spend it on whatever. And then they ask you for money again, and you're like, what happened to that, $6,000 I just gave you? And I'm like, you don't have any money for a bandage, like,
Yeah.
and yeah, so you see a lot of that these games where they might play with you, and you leave their village, and almost immediately, literally the next day, every time they send you some picture of someone who's been cut or been sick, and like, help, there's a family emergency. And I'm like, you sent this same photo 4 months ago to one of my students, like, so you start to the games that they play, and it is so, yeah, it can be really tricky to really give and be generous and be in reciprocity when there's all these games going on. And it's not impossible, but it requires really strong boundaries. It requires a lack of foolishness, and really calculated ways of contributing, where if you are bringing in supplies, at least they have those supplies, right? They're not going to just spend money on, whatever else things, the iPhone or the Nikes that they don't really need. They have machetes, they have kids' clothing, they have notebooks and pencils, whatever. And then, like you said, ideally, there could be an organization that manages these things carefully and tactfully. I know that the Akate Alliance exists. I've heard mixed things about how helpful or effective that they are. Um, I don't know if you know this, but my partner and I also just started a nonprofit, and part of our many initiatives is Indigenous support and cultural exchange, along with conservation and sustainability, and just harm reduction, like really just all the things that need to happen in this space overall. So our hope is that eventually we can be in a position to act as a reputable mediator, so that if people do want to engage in reciprocity, they have an organization that they trust that can be strategic in figuring out how to support these people without creating reliance.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. I really wish you luck. I can relate to everything you said, like literally to everything you said earlier. It's on point. That's 100% my experience. It's been over the years, and yeah, I just think that you would need to be there, like, and really like paying for projects more than just giving the money to somebody. I believe that was the mistake many people have done in the past, and unfortunately, it didn't go maybe where it was supposed to go.
It can be a delicate balance for sure. And it seems like maybe managing, like purchasing materials to build a maloka or something like that is the easier way to make sure that the resources go where you would like to see them supported. But yeah, it's not black and white, that's for sure.
Definitely, definitely. But yeah,
Um,
yes,
Sorry, I think there's a little bit of a delay. Well, yeah, I'd like to kind of wrap this up and
yeah.
move towards finish here. Is there anything else that you want to share with people that are listening, just kind of around this topic of like indigenous integration and traditions and Amazonian medicines being used together?
I believe my core message would be, if I would want somebody to take anything important from this conversation, is yeah, not everybody who wears feathers or does ayahuasca ceremonies is a shaman, or like, so being aware about that. It doesn't matter if somebody just came to the jungle, and I have seen that people come to Peru here or to the jungle, does like a 3 days training somewhere random in a backyard, and then they come home. I've been to the jungle, I'm now a shaman. And so this is a really dangerous. So we should separate, like, not just because you have been to the Amazon, you're automatically like a shaman, or like Kambo practitioner or whatever. So being aware about that, it is really about the time you have spent learning and doing that, and with who you have spent the time. It's much more important. Um, then what else would be important to say? Yeah, just regarding that practice. With Kambo and Ayahuasca, and I guess that was the main motivation for our conversation here. I have seen people in the past saying different negative things about it, like if somebody offered that, that should be um, canceled or that they're like a bad practitioner. I don't see it like that as black and white. I believe there are many nuances to that, and people should like kind of try to understand it and take the time to fully understand it. I think that's more important than just labeling somebody as bad or good because they're doing something or they don't do something. And yeah, and don't drink too much water. That's very important. I guess that's the most important thing. It's really dangerous to drink like at least like for now we know 1.5 to 2 liters. There as far as I know, there's never an issue because of that. But when it comes to higher quantities, people should be careful. I guess that's a very important concern.
Yeah, so the fundamental point is don't drink too much water 'cause that's where
Yeah.
people get into trouble. And yeah, and I also just want to say again, I always appreciate your ability to think about things in nuanced ways because there is a lot of cancel culture and tribalism and exclusivity. And the truth is, a true master can find a scenario where something that maybe isn't best for most people is best for that person. And it's really about discernment and attunement and experience that allows a provider to make those assessments. And I think the real issue is that we have unqualified people making those evaluations and providing these kind of blanket generalizations and assuming that everybody needs the same thing. So if we're listening closely, I think there's always room for any style of intervention, any, stacking protocol, because there's always a unique case where that might have been perfectly indicated for what that person needs.
Mhm. I agree.
Where can people learn more about you and the work that you do and maybe come visit you?
So I guess the best is to contact me via Cambo Naturista, and yeah, so this is my Cambo related work, and yeah, the center is open as well, and there are different projects that are coming soon. So that's Amazon Soma, but I guess like just Cambo Naturista, that should be sufficient.
Awesome. We'll put those in the show notes so people can connect with you. Dan, I'm so grateful for your time and for the beauty of your mind and your heart and everything that you offered to this conversation and just this field at large. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I also feel like you're doing really great work, and I appreciate your energy that you're putting into the community to help educate people. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Likewise, I see that reflected in you as well, brother. So thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in to this episode of Frogcast with Dan. And please follow along for more combo convos where we dive deep in all things frog.